Algonquin Provincial Park was established in 1893. The park itself covers an area of 7,725 kilometers square. The area we now call Algonquin Park has been a home to wolves since pre-colonial times. In 1960, wolves were protected from hunting and trapping within the park boundaries. In November of 2001, wolves were granted additional protection in the form of a moratorium on the hunting and trapping of wolves in the 39 townships surrounding the park. Despite the long history of the wolf in the Algonquin Park area, to this very day, Algonquin Park wolf management has been a politically charged issue in which a variety of interest groups, each with a different set of values and motivations, are often at odds with one another. Some groups believe that the Algonquin Park wolf population is in danger of extinction and should be protected accordingly, while others strongly disagree. Thus, depending on whether you love or hate the wolf, the risk may be decreasing wolf populations or increasing wolf populations respectively. Why does this disagreement exist? Is it due to the way the wolf is portrayed in North American culture? Or is it due to a lack of reliable information available to the general public? Or is it simply due to the urban-rural divide? Or is it a combination of all of these factors? Amidst these extremes, the scientists of wolf management continue to generate new knowledge. But how effective is this knowledge in dispelling misconceptions or changing people's values regarding the wolves? Is it possible that these interest groups, often at opposite ends of the wolf debate, share a common value? On-camera interviews were conducted using digital video technology.
I just think they're beautiful.
A member from each interest group was interviewed, including environmentalists, loggers, trappers, tourism, farmers, First Nations, and last but not least, a selection of scientists. In addition, on-the-street interviews were conducted in Toronto, a major urban center. Results were then compared to on-the-street interviews conducted in Barry's Bay, a small rural community at the southeast corner of the park. All interviews were conducted using predetermined questions in order to identify preconceived biases and how these biases differ between the interest groups, demonstrate whether or not science communication has been effective, and lastly, to determine if interest groups share any values regarding the wolf.
A wild dog running around the bush and looking for food, just trying to survive.
I look at it as one of our totems, as being Algonquin. I've always had sort of a fascination with the wolves, and I just look at them as one of our brothers.
Well, it's not a. In my case, it means I got to go out there and investigate the. If the complaint come in, I have to go and investigate the kill and help the farmer out. There's a problem between the wolf and a human being.
Okay.
When I hear the word name wolf, that's my job. I got to go out there, and they call me, and I have to go right away.
Well, wolf is my love. I think I automatically associate with howling too, and that's part of what we do in the research. But it's a symbol of the wilderness, much like the polar bear in the north. I worked on the wolf is a big symbol of what Algonquin's about. We named this place the Wolf Den, to answer your earlier question, because of a love of the wolves and our research both here and in Alberta.
It bothers me. I don't like it. It's just fine. I don't like the word wolf. Don't bother me if it's out there in the wild, but their version of wild out here is not in the wild. You're in a residential area, and I don't think that there's room for a build-up of people and wolves in the same area. That's just not a good mix.
The first thing that comes to mind is Canada. Wolves are a symbol of what we have in Canada that so many countries around the world don't have. And that's the inspirational side of what comes to mind when you hear the word wolf.
I don't have an answer for that.
Really?
I mean, lately it's about controversy and so forth because that's my business. But I rather expected that question was there to evoke some sort of emotional kind of response or whatever. But I'm so guarded against that in this, become so guarded against that in this entire wolf debate that I'm not sure I actually have an answer that would satisfy you for that.
That in itself is a good answer.
My name is Melissa Dukacik. I'm the Wolves Ontario project coordinator at Earthroots. Through the Wolves Ontario project, we do a lot of educational outreach, and that means going to various community centers, schools, to talk about wolves.
Throw a wolf face. Give her a growl.
Is that your best one?
No.
Want to do an interview with me about wolves?
Uh-huh.
Come on.
But I will get in trouble.
Oh, will you get in trouble? Can I interview him about wolves for 2 seconds?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to send two out, but if you got one, then you only need one more.
Yeah, great.
And the first thing I like to start off the presentation with is going around the room and asking the people, teachers and students, what's the first word that comes to your mind when I say the word wolf? And usually you get a few different responses.
Dangerous.
Amazing.
Dangerous.
Scary.
Prey. I'm a predator.
I think of them as a scary animal because of their teeth and because it's easy for them to kill other animals.
Yeah, really scary.
Do it, howl.
My name is Melissa, and I work with Earthroots. And Earthroots is an environmental group here in Toronto, and we work to protect wildlife and their habitat. And we created the Wolves Ontario project because there are no regulations or laws in place in this province to protect wolves. In fact, wolves are afforded less protection than raccoons, an animal that you see everywhere. So we also put together a slideshow and theatrical presentation for you today to explain why the government has not protected the wolf and why we think they should. Now, the wolf has been hated and feared for many years. So what better day than today, Valentine's Day, to change our heart for wolves?
Okay. I don't know when this starts.
Do you think the wolf has been portrayed fairly in North American culture, like art, films, stories, fables, things like that?
Well, generally no. There's a lot of baggage, obviously, that wolves have had about them being bloodthirsty killers, and I mean, Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs and all that sort of thing. That's the sort of stamp that wolves have had traditionally. But that's changed quite a bit in the last 30 or 40 years, and we're fond of saying here in Algonquin Park that we think that our public wolfhowl program, for example, has had a lot to do with changing attitudes towards wolves, because we don't just go out and hear them. The expedition is preceded by a half-an-hour slide talk about wolves in Algonquin Park and what has been learned through the various studies that have been conducted on them. We think we convey a much more realistic attitude towards wolves, and that's pretty general now. Gone are the days when people could stand up and say that all wolves should be exterminated because they're bloodthirsty vermin and of no use. I don't think anybody who even thinks that would dare to say that now, because clearly public opinion has switched around to the other side.
I'm a volunteer. Oh, the garbage too. Yeah, the garbage come down. So yeah, background. I think the good news is that in the case of most predators, the attitudes are rapidly changing, and yeah, I don't think 30 years ago you would have seen coffee table books about wolves or as a desirable animal, and so that's definitely changed. We've gone from hunting the animals by plane and snowmobile to protecting them somewhat, and there's a long way to go in that area. But I think the public in general, especially the urban public, that's an interesting distinction to make, is that the urban public is quite positive about wolves now, because they're coming up from their environment, the urban environment. They're coming here and they want to see the rocks, the trees, the lakes, hear a wolf, see a bear, and have all of that, so they want them protected. To a certain extent, the people who live here are some cases very much for wolves, in some cases very much against them, and so there's still a lot of trapping, snaring, shooting of wolves that's going on.
What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear the word wolf?
Wild.
A picture of a wolf.
Wolf, animal that has the right to be and exist as much as we do.
Wilderness.
Beautiful, endangered animal.
It's wild animal.
Right.
So.
Fear, I guess.
Well, wild animal.
Okay.
Why is that?
Endangered.
Okay.
Yeah, endangered species. It's getting less.
Beautiful animals.
Dog.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day. Hi there. We're doing a documentary on Algonquin Park wolves. We're from York University. Would you be willing to answer 3 quick questions on camera about wolves?
Certainly.
Okay, great. What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear the word wolf?
Wildness.
Fear.
Wilderness.
Okay.
The wolf howl.
Oh!
Wolves, I'm scared of them. I stay away from them.
Oh, their call.
The howling.
Yeah, the howling.
Yeah, I agree with her.
Same.
Yeah.
Your mother-in-law. Would you go on camera with that, or
Pardon me?
would you say that on camera, or?
Well, she always cries wolf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's the first thing that I think of when you're talking about my mother, or about wolf. Yes, go ahead.
Ferocious, scary, especially since I can hear them from my parents' home in the summertime, and they're howling and everything. They're very close to the house. Yeah.
Okay.
The sound that they make, the howling.
Oh, yeah?
Well, you don't forget it.
Right.
It's a combination of eerie and what's that, and mystery to it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for environmental groups like Earth Roots that are based in the city, because that's where we can do the most outreach to the most number of people, where there's a lot of resources. It's very easy for people to criticize us for working in Toronto for protecting wolves when we don't own a farm near the area. And this is what I'd like to work on more, is really try hard to see things through different people's perspectives.
And don't be bringing in some stupid rules and regulations from the cities for us rural people, because this is where all these rules are coming from the city, from the cities, the urban people
Right.
that are dictating to us,
Yeah.
And a lot of it just don't make sense. It's okay, they can do all they want. I mean, they have these wolf howls in Algonquin Park in the summertime, and all these people from the city go out to want to hear the wolf howl. Well, big deal to us. I mean, we hear them in the wintertime just about every night.
Yeah.
So it means nothing to us. Eh? When the wolves are down here, you hear a howl there, you hear a howl there.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's quite a mess here yet with the kids. These are muskrats that the boys do. Here's a muskrat, and it's done with the leather out. That's what you call case skinned. And the feet, these are the holes from the feet. All the grease and fat is taken off, and you're down to a nice clean skin. This here will be taken and sold at the auction house, and probably processed into a muskrat fur coat. This is all my 2 boys. This is all their work. That's a little deal that between father and sons I've made, that all the muskrat, whether I catch them or they catch them, they process them, and whatever money comes off the auction, that's theirs. So I just stand by and pass it on.
So no need to provide him with allowance, like in a...
It's like an allowance, yeah. And it's a lot of fun besides. It's not, there's a bit of work, but a lot of enjoyment spending the time outdoors, eh? Keeps them away from the TV.
That's right.
And actually, you can't, it's very hard for somebody that lives down here to justify what goes on in Queen's Park or any place in Toronto or Ottawa or wherever all these rules and regulations come from. When some of those people never do step out into the country. They make their rules and regulations looking over a desk on a piece of paper and a pen and just thinking, well, maybe this would be nice. This would be a perfect world if we done this and that. But you got to take into consideration the people that are involved in the rural areas and their livelihood and their ways of life. You got to take that into consideration, and that's been falling to the side. I don't think there's a lot of the groups actually think of that when they're pushing all their rules and regulations.
once again, you can take that same debate and turn it around and say, well, like, you can give a lot of credit to people in an urban environment doing work to protect those backyards that aren't theirs, it's their neighbors' backyards, and trying to preserve them for future generations when you don't really get to share in the enjoyment of them as much. So it goes both ways. In a lot of environmental issues in Ontario, not just the wolf thing, there's always this this way of framing it as the North against the South, and that holds some truth, and it needs to be looked at, and we need to be more focused on gathering more perspectives from living in different areas of the province. But certainly there's legitimate reasons to be concerned about what happens across the province. We're all stakeholders in our wilderness areas and the wildlife. We all should have an opinion regardless of where we live, but we should pay closer attention to what the lives are like of people who might be affected by wolves wandering out and might be predating livestock or what have you.
This dog here, he can tell you a lot of stories. That brown one, that's my dog. He can tell you a lot of about the wolves. The wolves would bring them right to the house here.
Right.
And a lot of times I would see the wolf there right behind the, right at the edge of the
right
bush.
at the edge of this woods here.
Yeah.
There.
Right at the edge of the wood. They're trying to grab my dog. I don't know. My dog would be barking. He would try to get closer to the timber wolf and. Be lots of noise, and I have to get up at night and bring my dog in because fear he might get ate. So
he's a brave dog.
He doesn't like wolves. Even when they're howling up here, he starts to howl.
Oh yeah.
He starts to bark and at them, and he just don't like wolves. But in the spring of the year, we hear a lot of howling up here because the wolves are migrating back to the Algonquin Park. So if you stand out here at night there, you'd hear them howling. And here is some of the pictures that I have to take representing my application to the municipality and to the Ministry of Natural Resources. They're mostly calves, and we've had mostly in one instance in August of 27, we had 10 chickens killed. The wolf came right into the farmer's barnyard and took away in one day took away 10 chickens. And some of that, see what happens too is that the pack of wolves get in onto the farmer's property, and they'll chase the cattle around, and some of them cattle will get hurt or they'll lose their offspring because they're driven hard, and the ministry doesn't compensate for that. They're just for the kill. And some of the farmers maybe their cattle might lose their offspring and get hurt, break their legs or something like that. They don't pay for that. They just pay for the kill. They don't pay for any damages.
Right.
I don't know which key
Oh, I'll pick up this.
Bring it. This is our bottling pan. We put all our filters on top of here, and this is the final procedure. And from here on, we put it into the bottles.
Well, the final procedure is probably poured over pancakes.
That's correct.
Yeah. What's your favorite way to serve up the maple syrup?
And this is medium grade syrup, and we pulled off 5 gallons yesterday, and this is the end result. It's nice clear syrup, and there's no cinnamon in it, and we're proud of our product.
Right. And how do you feel about the way the wolf has been represented in stories, folklore, films, artwork?
It's about 90% of it is all wrote up and done up in a manner where they like to see the public, they like the public to hear what most of these people want them to hear, not facts, and that bothers me.
Now, where does all this fear and hate come from? Any ideas?
Stories.
What kind of stories? Yes?
Little Red Riding Hood.
Little Red Riding Hood? The Three Little Pigs? Any others?
Werewolves.
Werewolves. There are so many of them. Aesop's Fables, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, Peter and the Wolf, Julia and the Wolf. There's pretty much everyone who's been with the wolf, and it hasn't been a good story. In each case, the wolf has been cast as the big bad villain. Now, who would like to go in the woods alone after reading a story like Little Red Riding Hood? A story about a wolf who eats little girls and even their grandmother. Let's see what really happens.